Greetings. Nothing to say? I don't discriminate. Any fan of the calamari incantation is a friend of mine.
Hey, aren't you gonna do the new Bloodwest content?
Huh? Oh, I figured maybe I'd do like a playthrough video or stream and talk about it. Don't think it really needs too terribly much, does it?
Ah, you didn't read the update notes, did you?
Yeah, I think we can do this. You're going to have to pardon my lateness on this one. This has been an absolutely massive year for releases, and I've got a lot I'm just playing for my own entertainment. But if you need an excuse for my lateness, call it fair play since they released late as well. Not without good reason, mind you. Following the customer feedback and enthusiasm, Hyperstrange struck a good nerve with people and decided it might work out to follow that and expand on ideas that they've already implemented, ones they were working on, and just the overall scope of the game. And yeah, I'm here for that, and if they want to take on that challenge, they deserve the full Monty, so let's go ahead and dive into Bloodwest, Chapter 2. Get shreked! Fuck!
I stand, not crawling, not falling down. I bleed the demons that drag me down. I stand, not crawling, not falling down. I bleed the demons that pull me down.
Let me tell you a story about a cowboy who's dead, doing what he had to just to keep his family fed, and one fine day he was shooting at some food, and then he died. But you already know that part, so our undead cowboy has cleared out the canyon of its curse, and he's awoken in a cave in an unspecified location to be told that his skills are needed once again. Quickly, he's introduced to a woman who we absolutely know is in some serious trouble just from the fucking looks of her, and we're tasked with rescuing some wayward souls before tackling the heart of the evil at the core of this forsaken plot of land. Introducing new characters with their own stories is a step in a much larger and more fleshed out world, which is helped greatly by the expanded map. After your little rescue missions, you're given a choice on a side quest. Annabelle is cursed in some fashion or another, and your new priest friend is sick. There are rumors of a cure for them, but there is only one, and you must choose who gets it. The child with her cursed doll has no job for you that I could find outside of her rescue, so she's left to her mostly own devices. Something, we accidentally awakened the evil. Annabelle tells us to talk to the cursed tree man, and the spirit who awoke us sends us out to gather parts for a slain gunslinger so we can bring him back from the land of the living dead, and he can tell us how to make the monster vulnerable so we can kill it. Easy peasy, simple as your mother. What's not simple, however, is your predicament. No longer stalking the sands of the canyon, Cowboy finds himself in Missouri.
Down here in the endless swamps fed by the big river, we only travel via tractor. 100 miles I have to drive my tractor every day. 100 goddamn miles to work through the endless swamps where I raise my delicious herd of hell cattle with my pile of big titty golf GM. Got that regular darkness, we got that there advanced darkness down here. Government's biggest lie is that there's a tomorrow for any of us. No siree, this is it. The rapture happened and our dark lord and savior did battle with the beast, and afterward they named the blasted and forsaken wasteland the battlefield had become Missouri. Then God turned his back on it, leaving only his ire behind, and we don't get no sunshine no more. Welcome to the 1,000 years of darkness. Joseph Smith was right all along.
I swear someone at Hyperstrange has placed a transmitter inside my brain and is just broadcasting my thought patterns to their offices. Hold on. Achoo! That was fake! Fuck you! Yes, ladies, gentlemen, and skinwalkers betwixt, the cursed swamps of parts unspecified, a rotting bayou filled with cultists, vengeful spirits, hillbillies, and bathed in a sickening fog just at the edge of night and sanity. Eternally in twilight I dwell. Vendigo, which make their delightful little appearance, are joined by their much nastier cousins, the Deathstalkers. The Risen get a wardrobe change as well as a new moveset to be renamed the Drowners, and even Prodigal Daughters make a cameo. It's the hillbillies you gotta worry about most, however, from the lithe and cowardly with a repeater to chonky trap-jawed bastards sporting shotguns, and capping off with blubbery masses wielding meat cleavers and sporting snazzy headpieces that make them immune to headshots. But even amongst the hilliest of billies are the most wayward of their kin, the cultists. Sporting health pools that will make tank builds weep, a ranged attack that inflicts bleed, and a fist that will take down even the most resilient undead down in 2. Their pure chonkiness and numbers are what will give the player the most trouble. You can find them just about anywhere on the map, and where there is one there is another, and then multiply that by about 6. A nice thwack to the back of the dome piece with a decent weapon will most likely down them in 1, but if you miss, you better hope you can stun lock them in their pain state and that they didn't alert their friends. There are also dogs who don't present too much of a threat or annoyance, making it the first game to have dog enemies that aren't the most annoying thing in the world. They're actually quite pleasant and easy to deal with. Leeches, however, like the cultists, are a gamble, quick and menacing in the water, easily taking you down in 2 hits, but on land, they're practically fodder. If the new enemy types and their density hasn't sold it before, the leeches teach you that there is much ado about tactics this time around. And speaking of strategy, with a much larger map and far larger dungeons comes everything having multiple points of infiltration and egress. Not only does this give the players more options, it opens the windows for more experimentation and player expression, which then logically leads to a higher level of replayability. Spectral gunslingers are introduced and you won't win, and any victory against them will come at too great of a cost. If you can trick shot and sharpshoot with the best of them, you might get some pleasure out of their demise, but your best bet when having to confront them is to stock up on liquor and bring your biggest boomstick. Gimp their damage and unload ordnance, or run. No middle ground. Don't let them see you. It's not just a massive upscaling in the map, it's an upscaling in the methodologies of play. You can sneak past everything, but you are going to have an increasingly difficult time doing so, and you're going to start having to plan tactical assassinations just to move between tunnels. And make no mistake, difficulty has taken a massive jump. The size of the map, damage received, sheer population of the enemies, and love of the bleed status effect mean you're going to have to up your game to a much higher degree than anything the first chapter prepared you for. We're going to go ahead and put a pin in that for just a wee bit later, but suffice to say for now you are going to want to go pretty far out of your way exploring to find new weapons. The crossbows and tomahawks add a nice level of stealth options that scale nicely as far as DPS goes. You're going to need to time your shots a hell of a lot better than in Chapter 1, but the options are a lot more forgiving. The tomahawk is a great addition and one of my favorites. Its damage has a good scale, but it's not going to carry you. You can stack 5, and its heavy attack hurls the axe with no chance of breaking on recovery that I ever encountered. I would suggest picking them up early, unlike what I did, which was not. It did not play out well. Embrace the new options early, or suffer. Relics and legendary weapons have taken a huge step towards game-changing. You'll want to keep a much more focused eye out for them, and if you're looking for a set that gets you great sneak attack damage with powerful panic button, get the saber from the boat and the shotgun from behind the alligator farm. The saber deals double damage, but on a whiff inflicts bleed, which by this time you should have leveled up enough that it's no longer a death sentence, but instead has been reduced to an annoyance that you just need to manage. The super sexy shotgun has a 15% faster reload speed and 100 goddamn damage. 2 world enders that will make your first run through a lot easier to deal with the consequences of your own mistakes. Chapter 2 is much harder, and everything is more dense, including lootables. If you didn't learn the true potency of liquors in the first chapter, you kinda will need to here. You don't drink it for the taste, so learn to love the booze. The atmosphere is also a hell of a lot thicker this time around, but it does have a very obvious cutoff point before looping back. So there is that. You'll notice its restarting points a hell of a lot more, but that could easily be refined and probably will be before 1.0 status. Aesthetically, and with enemy designs and names, it has taken a much bigger turn for the strange. Vendigo and Deathstalker start to have more of a lesson about them than some forlorn cursed cannibal, and the Drowners bring another level to that setting. Not just dealing with curses, grudges, and spirits of the New World inherited by a rite of conquest and a destiny called Manifest, it's starting to become a marriage or a family reunion of things that go bump in the night from the old world intermingling with the new. A sort of spooky miscegenation, if you will. And yes, I fully expect to get in trouble for that joke, but the broader point being, it's as if those who settled the New World didn't just inherit its curses, but brought along their own with them. Get out of my head, Hyperstrange. Or Don't. If you want to download my weird pagan paranoias and turn them into video games, I think that actually would be pretty cool. Makes for fun times for everyone. Overall, it's looking, sounding, playing, and feeling absolutely fantastic. You're going to need to up your attention spans and skill levels, as screwing up, attempting to flee to a little alcove just to find out it's a Deathclaw sanctuary is a much larger possibility now, though. But there are some issues, and ones I think need addressing, or at least some rebalancing. First is one they know about, but I'll point out to you just in case you're thinking about getting in at this point, and that is that for some reason attacking leeches in the cultist caves has a tendency to crash the game, which again they know about, but it brings up a problem that I hadn't actually noticed before. The player has no real save management options. This was fine in Chapter 1, you didn't need it, quests and caves didn't take too terribly long, and loot matched the time invested. Save and exit was an option and the game autosaves on death. But what about when the game crashes and you lose 90 minutes of spelunking? Or what about the game having become so large and enemy population so dense that death no longer has a slow buildup of a penalty, but instead has a penalty the first time, which grows exponentially with every death? You see, of all the enemies you will kill in any one run, somewhere between 80 and 90% will respawn when you die. Die enough and they will all be back. So what happens when you spend 45 minutes slowly making your way through a cave, having to kill a fuckload of chanty bros, lose too many resources in the process, and then die? Well, the progress through the cave is lost, sure, but that's just movement. Well, all but 2 of those enemies out of the 40 you killed are back, you've lost your resources from the previous endeavor, had to spend those you got just to restock them, and you have to try again, this time with less, as well as the building curses. It's a smaller penalty to just lose the gameplay entirely, restarting from the last time you were the game saved, and I say that because I had to do it twice. Failure now has a much larger time investment and resource expenditure than it did before, and it turns the buildup of the curse from a slow burn penalty in a relatively small game into an overarching cruelty from the developer side of things. This is only compounded by the inventory limit. Bigger map, more chunkier enemies, and massive damage output of enemies, and a love for bleed are all fine as they meet those expansions by giving you plenty to loot from resources to sellables. But your inventory is still limited, and it will fill up very fast even when ignoring all the ammo for a gun type you aren't carrying. Sure, dying means you get to quickly unload your inventory, but that death still has all its penalties. You can always use a town portal skull to get out quickly and a chicken head to teleport back to the bed, but that can cause enemies to respawn, and this isn't Diablo or Champions of Norath, it's a stealth action game. So what happens when you combine these issues? The result is that failure is exponentially punished as to realistically making your save untenable, yet continued success features rewards that rapidly diminish to the point where success is no longer even being rewarded in the first place. On top of that, there is no save management. I spent 90 minutes in the cultist caves kicking the absolute fuck out of it, just to hurl a tomahawk at a leech and the game to immediately crash. I lost all of it. The subsequent runs I did not go as pretty, and I lost a hell of a lot of resources. I never once, in 4 playthroughs of Chapter 1, ever noticed the lack of player-side save management. I practically needed it here though. Issues come up in games. Maybe the current build of Windows doesn't gel right with the current build of DirectX. Maybe the world's tiniest bug that flew under the radar becomes a huge issue in the hands of tens of thousands of people. Problems happen and they're fine. Nothing is perfect. A bug causing someone to lose 5 minutes is nothing. 30 minutes surely sucks, but nothing that really causes the player to lose all that much steam. But the ability to potentially lose hours of progress at a time because of a design decision clashing with a small bug is catastrophic, and I think it needs to be re-examined. Allow me to argue with myself for just a moment. If they add save management, the player will be able to save scum, thus completely breaking the curve of the difficulty and potentially any fight setups. Yes, that is true, but there are ways around it. Cooldown periods on when you can save, a consumable to make hard saves, save points throughout the world like checkpoints, etc. Sometimes we just have to ask ourselves if a dungeon is so long that giving the player the option to save scum or offering them checkpoints might just make for a smoother experience the first time through. If I am noticing a lack of player-side save management where I never had before, that means the lack of it is hurting the experience and not in ways that simply fixing a bug can alleviate. Like I said, I never once noticed the lack of save management in Chapter 1. In Chapter 2, it became a massive problem. The game is much larger, much more difficult, and gives the player a hell of a lot to not just do, but that is worth doing. Small hiccups now have the ability to result in catastrophic costs to the player, and if I have to make the trade, I will happily take you ignoring everything I say forever if it means you consider implementing player-side save management or a more generous checkpoint system for exploring the now massive cave systems and forts. You can go down very quickly if you screw up. Again, massive proliferation of bleed, and 2 goddamn hits will take your ass down if you're not liquored up sufficiently. And you can lose a lot of not just time and progress, but the ability to try again. I'm absolutely happy with how much the game has expanded, but it needs something to mitigate the player's expenditure and loss at this scale, especially with the curse system. But with that massive thing aside, I'm still loving where Blood West is going, and if you weren't challenged enough by Chapter 1, get ready for a hell of a goddamn time. Atmosphere and art are at absolutely killer levels, and the expansions to the scope of the game are adding a hell of a lot. We are, however, starting to see how being in early access too long can hurt games in the long run, so hopefully they're raring to go on getting Chapter 3 complete and their kinks hammered out, because it would be an absolute shame to see it lose steam before its prime, and there's no real identifiable sweet spot for time spent in early access yet. If you were waiting for more before jumping in, you're gonna get a fuckload now. I'm the TheNecroswanson, and you can go fuck yourselves.